Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Hi, Sandy.
And-
Drank too much.
Okay, so we're official here. We're recording and we're live on YouTube. So Jane, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, and once again, welcome everybody. It is March 5th, and we are happy to join together for our Traffic and Transportation Committee meeting. Today we have two really important issues to share some findings about safety in our community. So Josephine, if you would please get started. We have our updated pedestrian safety report to begin with.
Okay, and my apologies, everyone. I have a family emergency, so I'm going to give my presentation, and I do have a hard stop, but I wanted to make sure that I was able to provide the committee with this update. So, um, as everyone knows, the pedestrian Chair J. Marie Kapitanakis at the December 16th, 2024 meeting of Community Board 10. While Jane is our TNT chair currently, she was formerly the board chair. And back in December of 24, she announced the formation of a select committee on pedestrian safety that commenced in January 2025 to be completed by June of 25. The mission was to update the 2011 pedestrian safety report. So my goodness, 15 years had gone by. So the first meeting took place on January 21st, and there were 7 meetings that followed. The committee, the subcommittee, the select committee was led by Dan Heddix, and he's featured actually in the photo below. So the goal of the committee was to update the 2011 pedestrian safety report. It looked at the 2011 data from 2005 to 2009. There were 16 pedestrian fatalities and 834 pedestrian injuries. For the 2025 report, we looked at a similar 5-year period where there were 12 pedestrian fatalities and 536 pedestrian injuries. Following a particularly bad fiscal year, the 23-24, which was FY24, you could see from the graph to the right that pedestrian fatalities had peaked that year, raising to concern and discussion on the board about pedestrian safety. So the committee sought to identify the existing conditions that may be leading to an issue of pedestrian safety and to suggest measures to prevent pedestrian vehicular crashes in the future. So the committee, its first meeting had deliverables and a deadline for June 17th, for the June 17th meeting. The chair of the committee did request a extension back to the chair of the committee, and the plan was that there was going to be a report that would be issued at the TNT committee meeting in September of 2025. So the committee really focused on first identifying priority intersections. That it was their goal for those intersections to be surveyed. And creating the list of intersections took quite some time to do. They put a lot of work into the committee. I mean, my hat's off really to everyone who participated. The list of priorities was done by reviewing the prior report, as well as statistics provided by New York City Crash Mapper, the annual average daily traffic, intersections where pedestrian fatalities had occurred, and speeding red light camera data. The intersections were then ranked and assigned a priority ranking for further surveying by volunteers. 6 tiers were created using the discussed prioritization method. The final priority-based list was a culmination of the select committee's work over the next few months. They considered intersections with fatalities, 5 or more crashes, 3 or more crashes per 1,000 residents, the 2011 survey tiers, and committee input. So the field survey was a 5-page packet, and you could see it there on the left. For those of you who completed one of those surveys, you'll see it featured here. And it was created to explain how, a video was created to explain how to complete the field survey. Dan actually did the video. He did an awesome job. It provided a sidewalk user count, pedestrian behavior, vehicle behavior, bike behavior, and a site audit on crosswalks, lighting, and signals/stop signs. A section of the pedestrian one-page safety survey asked if the intersection was safe or unsafe, how safe a pedestrian feels crossing an intersection by checking off one, very unsafe, unsafe, neutral, safe or very safe, as well as commenting why. So back in 2011, the Tier 1 rankings, I took a little snip of it and put it up here on the screen for everyone. And these were at that time of highest concern, locations that were rated the most dangerous by the points that committee had awarded. But over the 15 years since the last report, pedestrian safety improvements were added to all but one of the intersections of the 2011 report. Given the changes since the last report, the committee sought to create new priority ranking while still considering the concerns that were raised in this prior report. But so much changed post 2011. So DOT has really worked to improve safety across the city. Since 2011, the New York City Department of Transportation has launched many projects, studies, and reports to improve street safety. The department also utilizes more tools and provides more information and data about pedestrian safety than in the past. So you'll see on the left are the mapping of leading pedestrian interval signals. LPIs provide pedestrians with a head start at intersection. This improves street safety by giving pedestrians a chance to begin crossing the street before vehicles make turns through the crosswalk. Speed bump installations is another tool. Speed bumps are also part of the Vision Zero initiative. They aim to reduce speeding and decrease traffic injuries by up to 31% in neighborhoods. This includes speed cushions, which are a little bit different than the speed bumps, and they're divided into narrow, broken sections to allow wheel-based vehicles like buses to pass. So there's been lots of street improvement projects. DOT calls them SIPs when they call the office. I put a list here on the screen. When Dan first started the committee, he sat in the district office and we literally looked at boxes and boxes of New York City DOT files, which is probably our #1 ranking community request in Community Board 10. We have a binder that's probably 5 inches thick of current requests that are pending. But here's just a quick look at the timeline from 2011 to 2025 of different street improvement projects that have been implemented since 2011. Also, Community Board 10, as part of our collaborative partnership with the Bay Ridge Center and some business communities, we are part of the Age Friendly Committee. And since 2011, we have also partnered with older adult communities in the district and have invited DOT. Back in 2016, the Age Friendly Committee surveyed local senior groups and shared results with Commissioner Keith Bray, and lots of changes were made and benches were added and some LPIs as a result of senior advocacy at that time. In 22, we had a community forum, walkable sidewalks with local older adult groups and had a really good community conversation. And from that time in 22, New York City DOT and also NYPD regularly visits all of our older adult centers in Community District 10 and speak about pedestrian safety concerns. So I think one of the biggest efforts that was launched, post 2011 was in 2014 when then Mayor Bill de Blasio launched Vision Zero. His mission was to end traffic deaths on city streets. So Vision Zero priority corridors refer to areas identified by New York City DOT as part of the Vision Zero initiative aimed at reducing traffic fatalities. These corridors are selected based on high incidence of severe pedestrian fatalities to implement safety improvements. The most recent New York City DOT Borough Pedestrian Safety Action Plan reports includes the following corridors in CB10. And this report was, I didn't note it here, but was in 2023. So the corridors that are currently Vision Zero priority corridors in CB10 are 65th Street, between 6th Avenue and Avenue P, and that's beyond CB10, but it's a corridor that is being studied. 8th Avenue between 73rd and 39th Street, 5th Avenue between 4th Avenue and Flatbush Avenue, 13th Avenue between 86th Street and 36th Street. And the following priority corridors were delisted: 4th Avenue from Shore Road to Flatbush Avenue because of a decrease in KSI of 46%, and 86th Street from Shore Road to McDonald Avenue, a decrease of 49%. So on the right here, a little bit more detailed data on the Brooklyn priority corridors. So 4th Avenue data injuries is one of the ones that were delisted. You could see here, the good news, pedestrian injuries are down both in the priority section. And this was from Crash Mapper data that was from a Streets blog article that we pulled and looked at. And here is just some mapping of 4th Avenue. I know 4th Avenue is the next topic for bike audit, but I just, so I'll go by that quickly. I'm sure there'll be more to come on that. So key New York City DOT pedestrian safety initiatives: serious injury response tracking and analysis reports. So the acronym, we call it here in the office as CERTA, is a program at New York City DOT that investigates, analyzes, and reports all serious vehicular crashes, reviews street design, infrastructure, and driver behavior at each crash location, and makes recommendations. The reports are issued by New York City DOT quarterly and began in 22. And since 2022, there have been 96 CERTA events. And the community board does receive these, emails from DOT. And whenever we do have an injury, the DOT team will go out and study that intersection. The New York City DOT Streets Plan is a 5-year transportation strategy aimed at improving safety, accessibility, and the quality of streets across all 5 boroughs. Equity is the focus of the Streets Plan in terms of prioritization, aligning with DOT's commitment to enhance transportation for all communities. CB10 is a priority investment area tier 3, which is the lowest tier, but still receives support through this program. Next is school safety corridor studies. As we know, in CB10, since 2024, New York City DOT finalized its Safe Streets, Safe Schools, Safe Kids, a pedestrian and bike action plan. The action plan includes installing 50 slow zones annually, 50 street safety improvements within 1/2 mile of a school. It also updates the youth injury priority areas every 5 years. Most recently, CB10's school safety had a school safety corridor study for MS 407, which is the new middle school on 86th Street. And so you all may be familiar with that happened most recently. We talked already about older adults and pedestrian safety. There is a focus by the City of New York too, and a report was also issued in 2022, Pedestrian Safety and Older New Yorkers Report. And Sammy's Law was passed in 2024, and it gives the City of New York the authority to reduce speed limits to 20 miles per hour on individual streets and to 10 miles per hour on select streets undergoing safety-related designs. So moving back to the committee, so the committee really spent a lot of time on putting together the priority tiers for surveys. I just took a snip here of the priority 1 and priority 2 intersections. As I mentioned before, it was a culmination of the select committee's work over the next few months. They considered intersections with fatalities, 5 or more crashes, 3 or more crashes per 1,000 residents. Again, the 2011 survey and committee input. So Dan is really tech savvy. He created these great tools to help the committee and be organized. The priorities were sent out, and volunteers were given assignments to do the longer field survey. They were sent a packet. All volunteers who signed up in advance. And they received, a link to the video, a digital submission form. There was a Linktree page, and you could see here, there was some that were completed, some that were not. Unfortunately, Dan resigned from the board in December, and we received a lot in the district office. I don't know if there are more that we reviewed, but we reviewed quite a bit, because the one-page surveys, we received well over 100 survey responses of most of the prioritized intersections. So in those survey responses, there were lots of shared concerns that were noted in the survey responses. And those were high vehicular traffic locations, increased difficulty crossing. Those are near highway entrances and exits. There was some requests for LPIs, especially in areas that don't currently have them, like 13th Avenue, for example. There were a few requests there for LPIs on 13th. Roadway behavior, lack of enforcement, speeding, red lights, nothing that we're surprised about, double parking, mid-block U-turns, failure to yield to pedestrians, motorized vehicle use on sidewalk, including cars and scooters. So the next steps, CB10 was really tasked to share its updated 2026 pedestrian safety conditions report with the New York City Department of Transportation. And I just included a couple of key points. First is to request to review priority intersections that were created by the committee. Those were 6 tiers, as well as review those survey priority intersections marked by volunteers as unsafe. File service requests to New York City DOT for the following asks that were submitted as part of the application: a new traffic light study for 92nd at Shore Road, as well as 13th Avenue and 74th Street, left turn studies at Bay Ridge Parkway, both on 7th Avenue and Fort Hamilton Parkway. I think this is one of the #1 left turn requests that we get. People are very frustrated why it's not. These are heavily pedestrian traveled intersections. I took a picture here. You could see, I actually took this picture last week. It's just a regular occurrence. You could see how there's at least 3 to 4 cars that turn on left because there's such a heavy turning movement. And this is cars traveling on Bay Ridge Parkway eastbound, making a left northbound. Also turn studies at 14th Avenue and 86th Street, 86th Street at Fort Hamilton Parkway. LPI and crosswalk signals in missing areas, as I mentioned earlier, especially along the priority corridor of 13th Avenue, and lots of little notes about 13th and Bay Ridge Parkway, which we already submitted. Expand education and enforcement efforts for pedestrian safety related violations, for failure to yield, speeding, turning violations, mid-block U-turn, etc. Continued support for New York City DOT's district needs, as well as student and older adult outreach efforts in Community District 10. So pedestrian safety requires coordinated action. Enforcement alone does not adequately solve the issue. A comprehensive approach to double parking, U-turns, etc. All of these. Several residents suggest an educational campaign jointly with DOT, NYPD, and the Traffic and Transportation Committee, along with our communications and public relations stakeholders. Recently, CB10 did some educational outreach. It was, brought up by a board member. He's a member of this committee, Staley Dietrich. And we sent out educational materials to businesses who offer valet services with this sign that he had designed. So it's a good example of educational outreach that is certainly possible. So conclusion and special thanks. The Select Committee on Pedestrian Safety did complete its tiered priority list of intersections, created a field survey, a video, a pedestrian one-page survey. It also listed New York City DOT safety improvement projects that were completed since the 2011 report. Volunteers who completed the extensive field survey and/or the one-page survey provided individual feedback based on their own observation as pedestrians in Community District 10. I have sheets of this, that we recorded, and we're very blessed to have an intern to help us make clear spreadsheets of all of the feedback. The compilation is part of the 2026 CB10 Pedestrian Safety Report review that will be shared with the New York City Department of Transportation. I did send that updated report to the members of the Traffic and Transportation for your review this morning. The goal really is for Community Board 10, as Jane Marie was really intended when she initiated this project, was to continue collaborative efforts with the New York City DOT, NYPD, and all community stakeholders to work toward improving pedestrian safety in CB10. I'd like to thank the many volunteers who participated, the committee themselves who did a lot of work. Special thanks to many of the volunteers who I got to know who came to the district office, especially the 68 Precinct Explorers, which is a young teen group that works at the precinct, and they volunteer. They don't work, they're all volunteers. The Voices for Street Safety, which is a new, very an awesome group of students from Zavarian who experienced a horrific, one of their friends was severely injured in a pedestrian crash on Narrows Avenue. Bay Ridge Center ambassadors, lots from the Bay Ridge Center for Older Adults, Bay Ridge Prep, St. Eve from Senior Friendship Club, and neighbors at the Bay Ridge Towers all had signed up and came to the office to participate in the surveys, and I think they did a great job. So that concludes my report. I thank everyone for your patience. And Jane Marie, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Josephine. And really, our thanks goes out to Dan and the team that he had assembled and put together. It was a very comprehensive overview. And, as we had, as we think about this, as Traffic and Transportation Committee, we're the bridge. We're the bridge between our community members and our city agencies, our elected officials. And when our committee members and community board members wanted to bring forth the fact that they had these concerns about safety and how could we help elevate and raise this concern, this is how this subcommittee grew. And this is how it was tasked. And they were, as Josephine has shared, it was really a very comprehensive study. So now, Josephine, just once again, before you leave, I believe she's still there.
Yes, I'm still here.
Yeah, so Josephine, as you said, our goal was to be able to share this. So now do we have to put that to a vote of any kind, or is this just as we had said that we wanted to fulfill this?
Yeah, we could certainly do a motion and send it off to
Right.
DOT of all the information and the data that we collected. I think that would be
Right.
great if you wanted to do that now.
Yeah, and I would just ask though, also besides the DOT, to our elected officials.
Officials, yes, that's fine.
So that this way, everybody, communication is key, and we want to make sure that everyone is hearing what was brought forth to the community board as a concern. So if we could then have a motion to send this PowerPoint and the information to the DOT and to our elected officials.
Yeah, Carmen raised her hand.
Great. Do we have it seconded?
Jonathan.
Okay. Thank you. All right. So now, are we all in favor of this?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can vote.
Okay. Was there any opposed? No. Doris, I don't know if you were trying to say something.
Oh, so Doris has a
I am recusing myself because my grandson worked on the report.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, thank you for that. So thank you so much for sharing that. That was very comprehensive. I don't know if there was any additional comments from the committee, or we can move to our next presentation.
Yeah, I'll if we could move to the next one, just so I have a hard stop.
Yes, I know you do.
And I'm going to share and try to put on the next presentation.
Right. So as we can see from our first presentation, it was really focused on pedestrians, and then it was brought to us that others wanted to also share the specific needs around for cyclists. So we're happy to have that opportunity and to see what they can help to bring to light for our community district.
Hi, also.
Do you have a, yeah, do you want to, could you,
How you do you want to pick a time span when You want to end things or?
No, I'm good, I'm good. Liz, can you share the Fourth Avenue audit from your screen?
Yes, give me 1 second. Is that the link?
That's the link, yes. I think she could do it from her.
I have to send a request.
Okay,
Right, you might have to allow her to share screen.
yes. My apologies. Yeah. Um,
Okay,
okay, so I'm gonna go. All right, thank you, Liz, thank you.
no problem.
Thank you.
I guess we'll just ask Liz to like.
She could scroll, Dorothy could scroll, if you want. Oh, no, Liz could scroll, right? You could scroll, Liz? Okay.
Yes,
so you
I
could
can.
talk to Liz and you could scroll.
Yeah, that's what I figured.
And Dorothy, you know the participants, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Right.
Let's see.
Thank you so much. Okay, so Liz, when you're ready, if you can help to bring that up, I'd appreciate it. And I believe that we have Rose here to help to lead this.
Along with Dino.
Thank you.
So we were just gonna introduce ourselves. You all know me. I'm a, CB10 member of the TNT committee. I'm also a bike commuter. I own and operate a small dog walking company in Bay Ridge and Park Slope. I bike from, basically the end of the Verrazano all the way up to Atlantic Avenue every single day. I was out there today. I see and experience everything that Fourth Avenue has to offer, the good and the bad. I got involved in advocacy for safer streets with a focus on bike networks after I was involved in a pretty bad dooring incident. Yeah, so here I am 5 years later.
And hey, everyone, I'm Rose. Many of you know me, but for those of you who do not, I am actually, well, previously, I was a Staten Island and South Brooklyn organizer with Transportation Alternatives. I am now the Brooklyn organizer. But yes, so I'm the Brooklyn organizer with Transportation Alternatives. And I have also had a very large concern with safety on Fourth Avenue for a while, especially in the Bay, in Bay Ridge, just because of the dynamics between all the safety reforms that were given to Fourth Avenue south of Bay Ridge, and the lack thereof here, and the sheer inequities, between where the DOT focuses its attention and the results. And so, yeah, when I got this opportunity, I was glad. But I guess we should go into the bike audit report now. So I'm just going to introduce that quickly before we get into the results we found. So the focus of the bike audit was meant as a companion piece to the pedestrian report that we just heard.
Mhm.
And instead of focus, since a pedestrian safety report obviously focused on pedestrians, we wanted to do something that focused primarily on cyclist safety. And we only chose Fourth Avenue due to the, I guess, we saw Fourth Avenue as especially unsafe for cyclists. And because it's a really important north to south corridor for cyclists. A lot of cyclists in Bay Ridge use Fourth Avenue because they're continuing on the Fourth Avenue bike lane that starts at Atlantic Avenue. But then once they reach Bay Ridge, it becomes a lot safer.
Rosa, excuse me, I'm just trying to check. Are you starting to share your report now? Because I'm just seeing Josephine's Zoom. I just want to be sure.
No, we're just explaining the
Oh.
reasons, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm sorry. With the screen, I could not tell. Thank you so much.
Yeah. But either way, so the focus, was again to show the cyclist safety needs on Fourth Avenue and also how they interact with pedestrian needs. We spent 15 minutes at every intersection along Fourth Avenue in Bay Ridge, and there are 41 of them. At each intersection, we observed driver behavior, dangerous activities by drivers. We counted the amount of micro mobility users that we saw using Fourth Avenue at that intersection. And we also looked at the built environment. So basically, the street, like how the street looks itself and any needs based on the built environment. So the research was collected between May and August of 2025. After that, we spent the fall analyzing the data. And that's how we came to where we are at. Oh, and could you actually scroll back up because that was, yeah. Okay. So these are some of these are just the top line, stats that we observed. So those 6.3 average moving violations, that was an average at each intersection. And remember, we only spent 15 minutes at each intersection. And so, imagine that like over the course of an hour, over the course of a day, and imagine that at each intersection. That's a lot of violations that are happening every day. And each one of those violations could be a potential crash. Each one of those violations is an element that makes the road much less safe for everyone else using it. And so those moving violations could include a speeding vehicle, it could include an illegal U-turn that we saw. And for that would be in this, not necessarily at the intersection, but of course we were also looking at the street, before the one we were at. So that could include illegal U-turns, cars that were visibly speeding. We didn't have a speed gun, but when we saw a car that was obviously going too fast, then we were able to mark that. It could include cutting off pedestrians when pedestrians had the right of way, cutting off cyclists. So anything like that. 2.9 illegally parked vehicles per block. And again, that's an average of per block. Some were way worse and some, were better. And the 15 micro mobility users per intersection. So remember, we spent 15 minutes at each intersection. So that means that we saw an average of 1 micro mobility user every minute. For each intersection that we were at. And micro mobility users include cyclists. And we're not talking about like people with Vespa style, nothing like that, just regular either acoustic or electric cyclist scooter riders. And again, like just the old-fashioned like kid on their pink plastic scooter kind of scooters. Micro mobility users could include skateboarders, roller skaters. So anything like that is considered a micro mobility user, but most of them were just cyclists. And of course, there was no dedicated space for these users anywhere on 4th Avenue. And if you could scroll down, please.
Can I ask one question?
Yeah.
For the micro mobility users, you're saying it's just bikes? Like mostly people on bikes?
Mostly, yes.
Okay,
It's anything that goes under 25 miles an hour.
okay.
So it doesn't require a license or registration.
Because you have,
We didn't count wheelchair users as micro mobility users. So I guess we
You
could,
could.
yeah.
see, because being retired, you get to see Bay Ridge in a different way from when you're working. If I stand on the corner, I'm gonna see a bunch of bikes. What I see is the number of bikes maybe going by there. But what I don't see is a number of bikes running a light, going on the sidewalk.
Okay, I
Oh, well,
think we
you
have to
have-
get through the
okay.
presentation first before we
Okay.
start discussion.
Okay, no, because I just want to make sure, just.
Yeah, we're gonna go through everything.
I know, but I read that briefly, but I just want to make sure.
Okay, let's
because
let
I
them do the
wasn't sure
presentation.
if-
Yeah, let's
Okay.
move on.
Now, let me just finish,
Right.
and I'd be done. I wasn't sure when you have mobility.
Right, 'cause
that that
we're not
was
seeing it.
Scooters or other things. I didn't know it was just bikes, so now I know
It's
it's
not
just
just bikes.
Well, mostly bikes.
It's mostly bikes because mostly people ride mostly bikes. And electric bikes. That's the vast
Right,
majority.
but what I see is a lot of, well, now I know it's just, you're just focusing just on one thing, so.
No, we just
Yeah.
focused on what was there, and there were more than bikes, but it was mostly bikes common.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank
Okay,
you.
continue.
Okay, and anyway, so also looking at crash data, we saw that 15% of all micromobility, so 15% of all micromobility injuries in Bay Ridge occur on 4th Avenue, and that's since 2020, and 23% of all pedestrian injuries in Bay Ridge occur on 4th Avenue, and that's again since 2020. And so that's another reason that we were especially interested in looking at 4th Avenue. And if you could scroll down now to the overview.
So this is really long. I'm not gonna read the whole thing. Everybody had access to this before. I'm just gonna go over it briefly. There were 210 traffic crashes that occurred on 4th Avenue since 2023. Those crashes have injured over 140 people and killed killed one since 2023, killed 3 since 2020. We counted nearly 620 micromobility users during our observation of the 41 intersections south of 64th Street. 64th Street is where the current protected bike infrastructure ends, and it just dumps you into chaos. That average is 1 rider per intersection, as we stated. While observing 4th Avenue, we noticed that the conditions were exacerbated by dangerous behaviors of micromobility users, drivers, and businesses. We found that the most dangerous sections were the BQE underpass, Bay Ridge Avenue, 86th Street, 91st and 93rd Streets, and Shore Road.
Thank you. And if you could go down to road conditions. Okay, thank you. Yes.
Okay, I don't believe that people who are online are able to see what you're referring to, and this is what I had mentioned before. Okay, it seems that you're asking at the table to scroll down, and we're just seeing a screen, a Josephine screensaver that says Zoom.
Oh,
Oh,
So I brought
Okay.
that up before,
oh,
and that's what I'm just trying to, once again, share with you.
okay, so I didn't know that. I thought Liz was sharing her screen. Liz, are you on?
Yes, I am, and I'm sharing it currently.
I'm not able to see it, so I don't know if any of our other Zoom users could chime in. If you see or don't see something, please let us know. I do not see it.
I do see it, Jane.
I also see it for what it's
Yeah,
worth. I can see
I
the
just-
website.
I see it as well.
I do not. I'm sorry. I will. I don't know if I have to sign back in.
You could get it from your email. Did it get circulated today?
Okay. Okay, I'll look it up on my phone then.
No.
Section.
Okay,
Good.
Yeah, we're at road conditions.
okay, thank you.
Okay. So anyway, going back to road conditions, as for street design, right now, as I stated, 4th Avenue south of 65th Street has little to no 21st century safe design fixes. And so, by that, I'm talking about things like protected lanes for micromobility users, I'm also talking about daylit intersections. And we also don't have, we do have LPIs, which is great. We don't have much bicycle parking. And there are also a lot of other fixes that we made on 4th Avenue to make it a safer, street for everyone. Right now, 4th Avenue encourages speeding by giving more space than is necessary for moving vehicles, so for cars. So for example, 4th Avenue in CB10 sees around at max 20,000 vehicles daily. And that's, along all 4 lanes. But that's, that's at max. It's usually a lot less. But, and this is, going from the state, average, daily, I forget the acronym, but yeah, this
Okay.
is going by the state's traffic viewer. And so, again, 4th Avenue sees at a max 20,000 vehicles daily, while nearby Bay Ridge Parkway sees around 18,000 vehicles daily. But Bay Ridge Parkway is a 2-lane street and makes do with 2 lanes to handle around the same amount of traffic as 4th Avenue gets. And so that amount of space given to cars actually encourages speeding, because when you have more space than is necessary for the amount of traffic that's there, then it does it can encourage less safe behavior by drivers. Also on 4th Avenue, pedestrians are often forced to step into the street just to see whether or not a car is coming towards them, because of the lack of daylighting. And so it also goes the other way around. A car might have to inch in front of the white line or in front of a crosswalk or into the crosswalk just to see if a pedestrian is trying to cross, due to the lack of daylighting. And so this is another unsafe element by design. And there is of course no designated space for micromobility users. We saw 2 areas of particular difficulty on the street. One, as you mentioned in the pedestrian safety report, was valet parking. We saw some of the most outrageous illegal parking right around restaurants that offer valet parking, such as Ponte Vecchio, Positano, and Encore. And in around those restaurants, we saw double parked vehicles. We saw cars sometimes parked on the sidewalk. We saw cars parked in bike lanes, in the crosswalk, walking on the curb cuts, and really just anywhere there was space to fit a car, no matter what the legalities were. And of course, this makes traffic more chaotic and more unsafe for everyone. And we also saw car dealerships as an element of particular concern, due to some of the same problems, though it was more around cars parked on the sidewalk, around car dealerships. And so if you can go on to the next section, please.
All right, so we had observed an average of 6.3 moving violations per intersection within the 15-minute period. This included illegal U-turns that create unpredictable traffic movements, and in many cases cut off cyclists. A lot of times they just back into them as they attempt to complete the U-turn. And my wife was hit by a car doing an illegal U-turn head on. Thankfully, she was all right. We ran the plates afterwards. We didn't, file a report or anything, but the driver had, I think, 20 violations, tickets or whatever, citations. And for, sorry, lost my place. We also observed speeding. It increases the risk of a crash. That's pretty obvious. And for every additional 5 miles per hour, the severity of injuries and risk of fatality dramatically increases. We have Sammy's Law that calls for a reduced 20-mile-an-hour limit on New York City residential streets. And there was also a fatality of a 66-year-old Frank de Colvenaire on 101st Street caused by a speeding driver in 2020. So as Rose mentioned, the current road design of 4th Avenue has wide lanes and long straightaways. It just encourages higher speeds. We observed a lot of cars running red lights, over 2 cars per intersection. This puts all road users at risk. Frequent instances of distracted driving and failure to yield to pedestrians and cyclists. I'm sure a lot of you drivers have been, stuck at a green light waiting for the person in front of you to move, and you just like want to honk really bad, or maybe you do honk. I know I do. Get very frustrated. People aren't paying attention. Drivers were observed texting, using their cell phones, and routinely cut off pedestrians in crosswalks and made turns while cutting off cyclists. And illegal parking is an issue we've discussed a lot in this committee. There's double parked cars and cars parked in crosswalks, hydrants, bus stops, bike lanes, no standing zones, and on sidewalks. And valet services were some of the main contributors to these issues. Double parked cars block the path of all vehicles, forcing cyclists to merge into fast-moving traffic. And it also creates hazardous conditions for pedestrians, such as blind spots and blocked sidewalk access.
And so if you could go to the next section, please. Thank you. And so, this goes back to like our counts of micro-mobility users at the
But
intersection.
I would like to make a comment. This is Darts. Transportation alternatives and safe, Families for Safe Streets did a survey of speeding in Brooklyn. And Community Board 10 is almost non-existent on the map. So the serious speeding is much worse in other neighborhoods, but it's not on your map.
We've had multiple fatalities because of speeding drivers. We had the one on Marine Avenue on 96th Street. We had the one on 101st Street. We had another one on, was it 65th Street?
But there are many at the
It's
Marine
not the worst corridor in Brooklyn, but it is.
are very, very unique conditions.
If you could show me if you could send me which map you're talking about, then I can.
I'll do it later at
Okay, yeah.
it was in I saw it in BK Reader today at
I also think that DOT just focuses a lot of its resources on other areas of the city, and Bay Ridge in particular is really understudied. Which is why we're
either way. Yeah, if we can go back to the report here, please, thank you. So we did not observe a single intersection that did not have any micromobility users. Although most activity, and again, we saw an average of 15 micromobility users per intersection. And most activity by micromobility users was counted at 86th Street and also at Shore Road for different reasons. But the micromobility users that we observed came from all walks of life. So some of them were recreational bike riders, and though they were anywhere from young children with their parents to older adults. That also included scooter riders, and again, of the regular kind of plastic scooter or razor scooter variety. Skateboard riders as well, rollerbladers and the like, but mostly cyclists. So, they included recreational riders, but also students and adults commuting by bike. And so commuters as well, parents who are commuting with children on cargo style bikes, and also, of course, delivery cyclists, who we see a lot of on 4th Avenue as well. So, and this, we haven't stated yet, but as you referred to earlier, yes, micromobility riders do engage in dangerous activities as well as drivers. And so we did observe micromobility riders engaging in dangerous activities. And so they included cyclists riding on the sidewalk, which I know is a large aggravation to pedestrians. And it's an aggravation to myself as well when I'm, walking around. And we also, sometimes we also see cyclists running a red light or kind of rolling through a red light, which I know is often seen as dangerous activity. I will say as a cyclist that we often do it because it's extremely uncomfortable to go at the same time that other cars are starting. Like if you wait for a green light and you're stopped at an intersection, then other cars around you can start much faster than you can. Like cars can go from 0 to 25 miles an hour in the space of like very few seconds. Cyclists cannot do that. And so if you are ahead of cars that can go much faster than you much sooner, then it feels very uncomfortable to wait for the other much larger, much faster vehicles around you to start. And so it's easier to just roll through a bit. But either way, so that is, one explanation for dangerous activities that you might observe from cyclists. And we also observed that cyclists were more likely to ride on the sidewalk when the street itself was very unsafe. So, for example, at one of the most dangerous areas, which is around 86th Street, we saw a lot of cyclists riding on the sidewalk. But in areas that were, quite safe and quite comfortable, we saw riders, riding on the street with traffic. And so we kind of concluded that riders were riding on the sidewalk to get away from dangerous situations on the street. And so if you make the street more safe for everyone, then cyclists are actually less likely to ride on the sidewalk. And if you add in a bike lane, then cyclists are very unlikely to ride on the sidewalk because they have a dedicated space. So actually, on Prospect Park West, there's an example of that. Cyclists used to be extremely there used to be a large problem with cyclists riding on the sidewalk around Prospect Park West. But when that bike lane was put in, the problem of cyclists on the sidewalk almost disappeared. Because now cyclists actually had a safe space and didn't need to use the sidewalk. But anyway, going back, okay, so can you scroll to the next section, please? Okay, thank you.
All right, so this section is very long. It's kind of like the bulk of the presentation. I'm going to do my best. So the first intersection was 65th Street, and this is where the current protected bike lane and what's up?
Oh, okay, so yeah, 65th, but so we were talking about the area between the BQE underpass and 65th. So
that is 65th.
Yeah.
Under the BQE.
Okay, yeah.
Sorry. So all of 4th Avenue was found to be unreasonably dangerous. However, the intersection of 4th and 65th under the BQE was a particular concern. There's potholes and debris scattered throughout. There's no LPI that creates conflicts between vehicles, cyclists, and pedestrians. If any of you have tried walking, through that area, it's pretty treacherous. There's 12 lanes total of heavy traffic with large trucks and fast-moving vehicles. And cyclists are thrown into chaotic conditions with the belt entrance right there and complex intersections, and no protected space or even signage indicating their presence. And 65th Street, as we discussed at the last TNT meeting, is an existing truck route. So basically you're dumped from a protected bike lane where it's low stress to a literal truck route, competing with all sorts of vehicles. And those are some potential improvements. It's dark, there's just a lot going on. Bay Ridge Avenue, it's a busy commercial transit hub. You can interrupt me if you want to add anything to any of these. It's a, yeah, Bay Ridge Ave is a busy commercial transit hub near multiple schools and places of worship. We observed heavy car, bike, and pedestrian traffic. And I don't know if you all had a chance to see the video that was submitted, but Bay Ridge Avenue was one of the most congested areas for cyclists to navigate. There's just a lot of double parking and all sorts of things happening. All the way down to 72nd Street, I would say, between Bay Ridge Ave. Unless you have anything to say about those, we can go to the next one. Oh, there's three that, yeah, perfect.
The one with the BQE, aren't they're doing work on that now? Because my church is on 6th Avenue and 65th Street. 6th Avenue and
It's not on
66th.
4th, it ends at 5th. They're doing the overpass,
It goes from
the
5th
bridge.
up, from 5th Avenue.
They're redoing the bridge on
the, yeah, above.
The Fifth Avenue Bridge.
Yeah, but no, because it's already, they're rerouting all kind of traffic and stuff there already.
Yes, there is work being
Yeah.
done on 65th. Perhaps Dorothy might be able to locate the information.
There is work being
Yeah.
done. They're revamping that bridge. They're reconstructing it from underneath and
But
re-supporting it from
not at
underneath.
4th Avenue,
Not a fourth.
which is what we're talking about.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, 86th Street, it's another busy commercial transit hub. It's busier than Bay Ridge Ave, as we all know. It has a subway, a major subway stop, and major bus stops connecting to Staten Island. We just observed a lot of double parked cars that led to bottlenecks and congestion. Commuters, this is, just a side note that something that we observed, commuters just have no seats or shelters, and there's just super long lines to board these buses, and it's not okay. It just kind of shows how our community prioritizes people who take public transit. It's a major delivery hub with little space for workers to operate. There's just a complete lack of dedicated space and can lead to conflicts with vehicles and pedestrians, such as riding or parking bikes on the sidewalks or parking delivery bikes in traffic lanes. 91st and 93rd Street, it's residential and commercial, with many car dealerships, car washes, mechanics, and drive-through businesses contributing to illegal parking and dangerous conditions. Driveways create unpredictable traffic patterns, often causing drivers to block sidewalks, and encourages dangerous maneuvers such as illegal U-turns. Yes.
And I also want to add that, for 86th Street, as, mentioned, there is not enough infrastructure or furniture for people waiting for the bus, at that, major bus stop at 86th Street. But one of our major asks, is for a 4 to 3, lane street diet along 4th Avenue. This would create extra space on the street that could be used for things like a sidewalk expansion that would create more space for like bus shelters for people waiting for the buses to Staten Island. It could create more space for benches for people waiting for the bus, for countdown clocks, or it could create more space for things that commuters need. And so these are the kinds of things that we could get if we had more space, and a 4 to 3 road diet would allow for that. But anyway, if you could go on to the next, yeah.
I'm not done with 90.
Oh, sorry.
91st, 93rd.
Oh, sorry.
But thank you for adding that.
Sorry. Never mind, you can go back.
I just wanted to say this section near the car dealerships between 91st and 93rd, it's close to the 2021 fatality we had in front of the Volkswagen dealership, where a driver of a newly purchased SUV struck and killed 72-year-old Carol Langdon while she was walking on the sidewalk. So, these dealerships pose a huge problem to the community. I'm sure a lot of you have noticed issues there that need to be addressed. So the last one should be Shore Road. So this is a very complex intersection with an entrance and exit to and from Belt Parkway. Cannonball and Shore Road parks are right there, with the main connection to the waterfront and Greenway. We observed just the general culture of drivers speeding while coming off the highway, and illegal U-turns were observed where signage existed specifically prohibiting the maneuver. There were consistent conflicts between drivers, pedestrians, and recreational road users. Drivers regularly failed to yield right-of-way to pedestrians and cyclists. I'm sure anyone who's been down there has experienced that. And I'm sure the pedestrian safety study also highlights that. There's poor signage and traffic signals and road markings that leave non-drivers confused about how to navigate the intersection. Yeah. And yeah, the potential improvements, so like, raised intersection, just expansion of the sidewalk on 4th Avenue between where the waterfront entrance is. It's just super narrow, and pedestrians have to share that space with cyclists, and that's really the only main protected biking network that we have in Bay Ridge. So it sees a lot of use, especially in the warmer months.
Okay, and if you could scroll down to the next section, please. Thank you. Okay, so this goes on to our, what we think would improve get safety conditions on 4th Avenue. And so the most impactful way that we believe we could, we could improve safety on 4th Avenue would be through the creation of a 4-to-3 lane road diet. And so basically it would remove one lane, it would remove one traffic lane in each direction, but then add a center turning lane. And so that way, and you would also, offer a lot of saved road, it would offer a lot of saved road space. And then with the saved road space, you could create more, you could create a dedicated lane for micromobility users. And you could also create things like widened sidewalks. It would allow more space for things like daylighting, which would enhance, safety on 4th Avenue. And it would just create a lot more space for enhancements for pedestrians and all road users. And now this was like kind of an example just to show you, like, this is not a prescriptive, like, this is how I want 4th Avenue to look. Like, that's not how I want you to take this. This is just like a kind of mock-up that I put together of like what it could potentially look like. So you'd still have you'd still have parking on, each side of 4th Avenue. But you would have, one lane going in each direction and the turning lane. You would have, and it could be like, if you wanted to add a bike lane, which, we also believe would be very impactful for helping safety, not only for cyclists, but also for everyone, because when you give cyclists a dedicated space to ride, then they're not on the sidewalk. They're not weaving in and out of traffic when you see cyclists having to weave around like a car that's double parked or whatnot, and so you're not interacting with that. So drivers are not interacting with them. Pedestrians are not interacting with them, and everyone has like more of their own dedicated space. Bike lanes are also known to decrease the amount of crashes that occur on a street. And the amount of fatalities, not just for cyclists, but for all street users. And street and road diets are also known to bring down speeding, to bring down crashes, to bring down rates of injury for all road users. Obviously, that is when that's when they're used as in, that's when the road is appropriate for road diet. We do think that 4th Avenue is appropriate since 4th Avenue carries less traffic than is needed for the 4 lanes of moving traffic. You know, we do not believe that the 4 to 3 lane diet would negatively impact congestion. And additionally, road diets are actually known to reduce instances of double parking, because when you have when you have only 1 lane of moving traffic in each direction, then the consequences of double parking are are greater, and so drivers are actually much less likely to double park. I mean, there's simply not as much space to double park, and so drivers tend not to.
Okay, thank you. Are we, is this the conclusion? Because I don't have it. I don't know if that is what's matching what I have. Is this your conclusion then?
There is one other section, with just addendums.
Okay, all right. Well, we've
and a case study.
we've spent a lot of time on this as well, and I know that this way we can kind of share with the committee a little bit, please. Thank you.
Yeah, and so this is just a case study of Riverdale Avenue, which did receive a 4 to 3 lane diet. Now there were plenty of examples that I could have chosen from of streets that received the same type of road treatment. I just chose to use Riverdale Avenue as an example because Riverdale is very similar to Bay Ridge in that Riverdale is also a very residential community. The density of Riverdale is very similar to the density of Bay Ridge. Riverdale also has an older skewing population, like Bay Ridge does, and Riverdale also has kind of heavy car usage because it is kind of far away from since it is kind of in the outer outer boroughs. And so, there are a lot of similarities between Riverdale and Bay Ridge, which is why I chose that example. And anyway, so in 2020, the DOT implemented a 4 to 3 road diet on Riverdale Avenue in the Bronx. And it was between, gosh, I'm trying to remember, I think 265th and 240, I forget the exact segment. I can get you that information later. But either way, after the
so this was a similar place, or as you're stating, that this was something similar with this particular suggestion was something that helped improve the area. That's what I'm gathering from what you're sharing. Okay.
Yes.
All right. And then there's just your addendum, you said.
I'll go over these quickly.
Great.
City Bike, as we all know, is here to stay, whether you are excited about that or not. And the presence of bike share riders has already become noticeable and is expected to increase. This adds pressure and addresses the urgent need for a redesign of 4th Avenue to accommodate the safe movement of the growing number of cyclists and micromobility riders. That's the gist of it. We can go to the next one. So I did reach out to Los Deliveristas Unidos and the Workers' Justice Project. I met up with them. We did a walkthrough of Bay Ridge. They hadn't ever been here before specifically. They were focusing a lot of their attention in Bensonhurst and Sunset Park at the time. They were shocked at, just the lack of infrastructure for cyclists in general, and just the connection between Sunset Park and Bay Ridge is very dangerous for their workers. It's kind of unacceptable that it's been left neglected for this long, and it really does need to be addressed. And I'm talking about the 65th Street corridor. And, specifically addressed to, they wrote a whole statement, but this was the quote that stood out the most. And it says, every block of protected infrastructure means fewer crashes, fewer injuries, and a safer workplace for immigrant workers who keep this city moving. We call on the city council to act with urgency, expand protected bike lanes in Community District 10 and throughout the city, accelerate the build out of safe micromobility infrastructure, and ensure that the workers who power our city have the basic protections they need and deserve. And just to highlight something, delivery workers, it's the most dangerous job in the city. It has the highest rate of fatalities and injuries. So, you know, they deserve a safe workplace. And just the last addendum is just some fun facts, I guess. You want to do that? I talk that way.
Yeah. So basically, this just, kind of shows the importance of safe infrastructure, for cyclists. And, so one, when you add in more when you add in more space for cyclists, then it does increase rates of cycling. And whether or not you like cyclists, if you increase the rate of cycling in your community, then a lot of those cyclists who turn to bikes to commute, then that means that instead of using a car, they're using a bike. And so that decreases the traffic that you have to deal with as as a driver. And so that that ends up helping everyone. So two, this, and that I mentioned this before, but when you add in protected bike lanes, then you tend to lower the risk of injuries and fatalities for everyone, not just cyclists. But of course, cyclists as well. And protected bike lanes are known to boost local business. I know that some people, this is hard to believe for some people. But like cyclists, like they shop. And so when you add in a protected bike lane along like a business corridor, then it is known to increase business. For example, on 9th Avenue in Manhattan, adding a protected bike lane led to a 49% increase in sales. And okay. Finally, it reduces the gender inequities. So right now there is a gender gap between who's riding in our streets. There are much more male cyclists than there are females, and a large reason for that is perceived safety and actual safety. If you make the streets safer for everyone, then you'll make women more likely to choose to get on a bike, because you're reducing the safety risk to, you're reducing their risk for getting hurt. And finally, it could help improve air quality. So, yeah.
Thank you, Rose. Thank you, Dino. Jane?
Okay. Well, thank you so much. It really was a very broad presentation. And as you shared, issues that you saw on 65th Street are very different than the issues that were up at the upper end of Bay Ridge. And, I'm sorry, I'm just having a little bit of technical difficulty tonight. I apologize. So just as you said, there were different things that you saw and different things that you were bringing light to. One of the things that we are, as I said, interested in sharing is if there are issues that are important for our community, our role really is as that bridge to help to bring it to the attention of DOT, bring it to the attention of our elected officials. Now, coming from this, from this particular report and what you shared with us, you expanded our view of micromobility users so that we weren't just focusing, while it may have been mostly cyclists, as you said, it also included scooters, it included rollerblades, it included all kinds of different users that people may not associate with this. You also pointed out that you did your survey during those summer months. So it was from May to August when the weather is best, and perhaps that's a really good time for cyclists to take advantage of the weather and for all micromobility users to take advantage of it. So that was another thing. You tried to look at 41 different intersections. I have to tell you, I wish that some of your data or fact finding that you had, that you were I wish that you were a little bit more specific, because some of the particular issues you mentioned, like with valet parking and car dealerships as being some of your main concerns, I think that we can all get a visual in our head that that's in Upper Bay Ridge from 86 on up to 100th Street. I think that was then that focus. As was mentioned, there are also other things that are happening in our community, including there is work being done. I believe Carmen was mentioning that there is other additional work being done on 65th Street. Dorothy was sharing a little bit about that as well. As was also mentioned at our last meeting, we also discussed the truck route redesign that is also happening at the same time. And also we're coming up on our first year since the City Bike expansion into Community Board 10, we'll be coming up on our first summer and first season going into perhaps potentially more cyclists using the bicycles and the roadways here in our community board. So I noticed that during your presentation that some of our board members may have had some questions or comments that they wanted to add. If we can get to that, please.
Okay, so anybody who has a question, please raise your hand.
I see.
We have Larry raised his hand first.
Great, thank you.
Question is, does the statistics differentiate between, say, scooters and bicycles, and also differentiate between deliveries or just simply pleasure?
No.
Right.
No, they're all lumped into one. We're not a government organization with limited time and resources. We're all, these are all volunteers who help. If DOT wants to come in and do a proper study, this is a chance to look at what we found with the little resources we have.
Also, second, has there ever been any consideration of licensing scooters or bicycles? Because today I was trying to make a right turn on 6th Avenue, and sure enough, everything was clear, and all of a sudden this zips right back on my right. And if you're a motor vehicle doing things like that, you get your license taken away.
What was on the right, then he had the right of way.
Yeah.
And you were supposed to yield.
Yes.
So that would have been a failure to yield that we would have marked on the thing.
Well, I didn't see him.
You're supposed to
All of a
look.
sudden,
That's what the right mirror is for.
That's what, I drive as well. 4th Avenue can get a little sketchy sometimes because, if you're trying to make a right turn, there's cyclists coming on, but you have to slow down. You have to come almost to a stop and be patient while you're making the turn and make sure that it's clear. Everyone just has to look out for each other. Really, you gotta be patient. And I understand you didn't see him. It happens, and but
Yeah,
you
you
gotta
have
look.
the right of way.
You got the right of way.
I know, I see. I just wanted to add that 4th Avenue is being studied by DOT. They are looking at it.
Oh, cool.
Yes. Just so you can note that.
Oh, yeah, I am aware that the DOT has been looking at 4th Avenue. However, we've asked for updates and, it's been quite a while. So I also think that, kind of sending a letter would maybe up 4th Avenue as a priority.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. We have Doris.
And Doris, I believe you were TNT chair when road dieting on 4th Avenue may have first been brought up as something.
Yes,
that
and I'll tell you, yes, and I was chair of TNT, and DOT came and they said to us, and I said, well, what about the buses? And the person from DOT said, there is no 4th Avenue bus line. Well, I can tell you, 62% of 4th Avenue is used by buses. There are 12 bus lines that use 4th Avenue. There are I lost track. There are 24 bus stops. And the buses make 24 turns. And when they turn, they need more room. They make both left and right turns. So I do not think we're considering the impact that buses have on Fourth Avenue, which is not true in northern Fourth Avenue in the Sunset Park area or on Riverdale Avenue.
Thank you,
There's a bus
Doris.
that turns on Fourth Avenue and Sunset Park. I don't remember the line, but it cuts in front of me every
Eleven,
time.
They do not have 12 buses.
They don't have 12. I don't think they have 12 buses.
Would be-
I think
the
the
B11
B11 goes in Sunset Park also.
What's that?
Doesn't it run out Sunset Park?
Part,
The
yeah.
B11 part of it?
Okay,
Cuts
okay,
through.
moving on.
Turn.
Moving on, Stephanie?
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I wanted to thank Rose and Dino for doing the study. I know it's very extensive and very time consuming, and I appreciate that you captured so many of the concerns that we've discussed over the last several years. But one piece that seems to always be missing from these discussions is emergency response considerations. In fact, I think the City Council finally recognized that and established Local Law 6 of 2025, which now mandates that the DOT consult with the FDNY before it approves any major transportation projects. That includes open streets, certain bike lane projects, and other types of projects that would put impediments in the street. And I did look over the mayor's management report for several years back, and year over year, the last data set being from 2025, year over year, there has been an increase in response times for the emergency vehicles. And I did consult with someone at the FDNY to confirm that response times means moving from point A to point B. There's an additional danger or challenge that once they arrive on site, and remember, fire trucks, firehouses don't only respond to fires, but to health emergencies. And so sometimes you're dealing with one vehicle, sometimes you're dealing with many vehicles. But even if response times are not affected, there's a tremendous operational impact on some of these units, these emergency response units, which would include physical barriers, the narrowing of streets, increased distance from the street to the sidewalk. So in other words, when a fire engine pulls up, if there's a protected bike lane, they are that much farther away from the building that they are trying to reach, and their ladders don't reach it. I think that as an advisory board, we as a committee, as community board, we need to consider the full picture of total public safety. So when you talk about making streets safer for everyone, it needs to include multiple stakeholders and to include the emergency responders. The other thing I wanted to bring up, as you mentioned, protected bike lanes, there is Crash Mapper data about injuries, particularly for the 4th Avenue north of 65th Street. In the years between 2016 and 2020, just cyclist injuries alone were 147. And then of all the injuries, cyclist, pedestrian, motorist, between 2021 and 2025, it was the cyclist injuries that increased by 170%. And that was after the implementation of a protected bike lane. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Okay,
Stephanie.
so I have response for both of those, if you will allow. So for emergency response times, as you mentioned, the DOT would never, as you mentioned, it is law for the DOT to consult with the FDNY, and also, I believe, with the police department before making any major changes to street design. And so if the FDNY found that this would reduce response times, then it would not be implemented. And so like that, I think that we understand that that is a concern. If that is seen to be a concern by the FDNY, then they will reject the plan. We're just looking for the DOT to study the idea, and of course for the FDNY as well. Also, I want to mention that some bike lanes are actually designed as emergency vehicle, as routes that could be used by emergency vehicles. So if you make like a double bike lane, so a bike lane for, cyclists going both north and south, is actually wide enough to act as an emergency vehicle route. And this actually can improve response times because it allows fire trucks or other or police vehicles to get away from traffic. And I also want to add that after a large increase in after there was a large increase in the amount of bicycle lanes added after Vision Zero was first enacted in 2014, there was actually an initial decrease in response times. And yes, in current years, we have seen an increase in emergency vehicle response times. A lot of that, like the biggest driver in increasing emergency response times is car traffic on the road and not bike lanes, because it's cars that they are stuck behind.
I have to interject, please, and that may very well be the case, but if you're talking about a road diet, and this is just part of the broader conversation, my objective is, as is yours, to make the streets safer. If you have a road diet and now you're down to one lane going in, one in each direction, there's nowhere for cars to pull over. This is not just conjecture on my part. This is testimony that has come from the fire department in front of city council. So I just wanted to add that. But thank you, Rose, for your other comments.
And again, any changes to street design would be looked at by the FDNY first.
Right. We also have two other committee members waiting, so thank you so much.
Can I just answer that real fast? You look at Fort Hamilton Parkway, with regard to emergency vehicles, they use the center lane. That's what the center turn lane is for. And also, there's like a huge increase in car registration since 2020, which contributes to congestion. And
once again, we'd like to give our committee members an opportunity. Thank you.
Okay, we have two remote members and we have Carmen in the office. Jane, who would you like to call on?
Great. You can
Carmen?
go.
Carmen will go.
It's so, to me, this seems so strange having this conversation, because when I was growing up, we would grab our bikes and go off for hours and everybody just respected the rules of the road. And now it just feels like the Wild West has come to Bay Ridge or the city. I see cars running lights. I see drivers of cars on the phone. I see people on bikes that have this mount and they're watching a movie and it blows me. I see delivery men. I know they have a time span. And when we've had the police sit here and tell us we can't chase these people down, there's nothing much we can do. That's one of the scariest things to me, because that puts everybody in danger. But the one thing that I always like is when I'm in a car and I'm going to the Bay Ridge Senior Center, to me, 4th Avenue, what it represents to me is like a slice of a small town. I will see a funeral here. I will see kids getting in and out of buses. I will see people like cars for accessory. I'll see road work, and everybody has their space to move. You shut down a lane, like when I first came on this committee, I was on a walker. And when accessory would drop me off, they would have to bring me to the closest curb. That you have to keep in mind, I understand your position, I understand the committee's position, but keep in mind, this is like real life stuff. This is, any of those changes will benefit one group or another, but it has to be beneficial to everybody. Because when I first moved there, I was very athletic and very strong. Now I'm considered disabled. And when I see, like, the kids getting off, I see like the parents watching, everybody has to have their room to work. Like I'll see workmen, and this is just going from here to like the center. I'll see, and it just reminds me, like, everybody has a function here. Everybody has a job. Everybody, this stretch of road right now, everybody's respecting each other. They're getting deliveries. They lost a loved one. There's a lot of stuff. And the one thing that I have to keep in mind is that's right now. That's in March. What happens when the weather gets warmer? And now we're adding, what is 700 bikes, city bikes? Whatever the number is,
At the same time.
that's gonna add more stuff, and
About everyone.
Okay.
let me finish,
Committee members,
let me
please.
finish, okay, let me finish, I
You're
put my
very
time in,
selfish.
let me finish.
Person.
I'm not
Committee
being
members, please.
selfish.
Yeah.
Let's keep order.
I'm just thinking, like, a lot of what you're saying makes sense, but a lot of like people earning the right to have a car pull up to their building so they can get in and out, or, EMS. There's, like when she said the fire trucks, what I always see is like an ambulance first, then fire trucks come. That shuts everything down. We just gotta find a middle ground, but now we have a little more information to work with. But at the same time, if I'm giving them the respect to talk and, whatever, if she asks, if this is my time to talk, I'm just bringing back, there's a level of humanity here also, where you have to keep in mind, for some people, a lot of my friends that are older, they're afraid to go out at night because they can see a car coming, but they don't always see a bike or a scooter. So they're limiting their lives. They're not going to restaurants. They're not doing certain things out of fear. So yes, there's a lot of issues, and some of them are carryover from decades, and some of them, there may be new things we can implement. But the one thing that just bothers me is, like I said, people respected the rules of the road years ago. Somehow that's what's lost, because I see both sides, cars and bikes and scooters and mobility things, whatever.
Mobility.
Thank you. Like people just not looking out for other people, just trying to get from point A to point B in a very fast time. And that's where a lot of the danger is. And that's where you have heard us, bring up time and time again with the police. We need help. We need people in Bennington need help. So.
Thank you, Carmen.
Thank
Okay,
you.
we have 3 remote board members. We have Chris Cesarani.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. I think it's really great as an advisory board that we were able to have different perspectives come in, to help us fill or create a larger picture on things. And I'm all foremost, concerned about the safety of everyone, in the community, the pedestrians, whoever is driving what type of vehicle or transportation, that everyone is, safe, and that we come up with the types of advice that help inform really good planning, and that it's done with a very strategic frame of mind. And, things like daylighting, I think are very important. And also just being strategic in how we consider expanding routes for different alternate types of transportation. On 2nd Avenue, there's, a bike lane that's on the sidewalk outside the Army Plaza, but you'll notice that that bike lane does not extend to go past NYU Langone for really good reasons, because it's a very tight corridor, of course. And so the traffic turns down 1st Avenue. And that to me is very strategic planning. And I know we've talked about 65th Street before, and just kind of piggybacking on some of the things that some of the concerns or elements that Stephanie was raising. I think about 65th Street, and I think that the police precinct is there, the fire department's not far away. These are areas that are heavily larger vehicle trafficked, and those are areas to really keep pedestrians and other small vehicle traffic out of harm's way, because there is definitely, very specific types of traffic going there. I think, extending the bike lanes on Fourth Avenue are also a thing to consider, but I also think we have to consider the nature of some of the businesses that operate there, where double parking or temporarily double parking to either pick up bulk items, unload bulk items, or deal specifically with motor vehicles is just going to take place. And if part of your study is about supporting businesses, then we have to be strategic in how we advise, because we would want to be able to advise not to hurt those businesses. and but also still find routes that are safe for alternate traffic. So I'm just adding these comments because I enjoyed the conversation and the information that's shared. And I know it's part of a larger conversation. I'm sure we're going to talk about it more as things roll out. But I also want to say that we should not look to just be ubiquitous for like the sake of building out lanes. We should be strategic so that bikers have an easy route that's dedicated, flowing, that will take them out of harm's way, that will help vehicles not intersect with them, help cyclists and micro riders not collide with each other. All of those things. We have to consider all of those things. So I just wanted to make those comments, and again, thank you for the presentation.
Yeah, and also,
Thank you, Chris.
I just wanted to add that, asking for the DOT to study this, would ask the DOT to study it in a way that works for everyone. Obviously, businesses included, everyone included. And of course, to work around the issue of, the double parking that kind of must be done. Well, there are also ways like adding in loading zones for trucks that have to load and unload bulk items for businesses. And so there are design workarounds, that'll make, that'll work for everyone.
Right, and that'll be their
Yeah,
part of their process. So right now, we just want to concentrate on giving the opportunity to our other committee members to have their opportunity to voice comments. Thank you.
Okay, we have Dan Loud.
Yeah, thanks. And thank you guys for this and for the amount of work that went into this. I just kind of like for the group and for the discussion kind of want to level set on, what we're talking about right now and what we are doing tonight. I think, first of all, Carmen, I'm actually going to jump off of your comments about the way that behavior has changed in the neighborhood, right? I think we all agree on that. I think we all agree that the way that people drive, the lack of respect for the rules of traffic in the neighborhood is atrocious, right? I don't think anybody right now is really going to plausibly argue that the way transit works in the neighborhood is working right now. At least I don't believe so. And, I think that we have to realize that yes, enforcement is absolutely a problem. The way individual people behave is a problem, but you come to a point where, asking people to behave better just doesn't work. We've kind of been trying that for the past, however long we've been discussing this problem, and nothing has changed. In fact, I think it's really only gotten worse. And so, I think we have to be real that what we have is not working. I think, I want to draw specific attention to the petition that was submitted along with the materials tonight. Because I think we need to be clear as an advisory group that, we do our best to represent the community here, that there are 600 people who signed saying they want this to be addressed. And I think we can all believe that there are far, far more who agree that this is a problem, right? And what we are doing tonight is, and as again, I think a number of people have sort of already touched on this, is we here tonight are not putting out a comprehensive plan for every intersection, every street in the neighborhood. Frankly, I think it's an indictment of DOT and the review that it's been doing so far that members of the community had to go out and collect this information themselves. Respectfully, Josephine, you mentioned the DOT study that's ongoing. We've been hearing about that for 3 years now. Where is it? I think these are members of the community who really have done their best. I think, obviously, we can always point to information that would be helpful to specific considerations on, a block by block basis. And that is DOT's job to ultimately do. I think what we need to do here tonight, right, is to focus DOT's attention, say, we need this, it is way overdue. And I believe that, the road diet in particular is something that has been shown to have worked in across the city. I totally agree. It is not a one size fits all solution. I think there are specific considerations that will need to be made, but they need to be made, and they're not right now. And so I think, we need to right now get in front of them. This is a solution that we want you to investigate. We need you to investigate and get back to us with a serious proposal on. Because, not to put too fine of a point on it, be too dramatic, people are dying in our neighborhood. Our neighbors are being killed every year this is not being addressed. And it could be any one of us next. It could be anybody else listening tonight. So, I Josephine, don't know, procedurally where we are, but I do want to, before we close out, bring up the motion that was submitted with the materials. I don't want to preempt discussion, but I just want to get that out there.
And we're still having discussion.
Yeah, of
Still
course.
have board members who have their hand.
Sorry.
I understand.
Thank you. We have Doris. Doris, we can't hear you.
Okay, Staley was first.
Okay. Staley, I'm sorry.
Oh, I was going to say, Doris, you can go right ahead if you'd like. Go right ahead.
So nice. So cordial.
One of you go.
Oh, okay. Oh, well, I'll go then. So I really appreciate this discussion. And I wanted to build I just had a couple of comments. First of all, I wanted to build a little bit on what Chris said, which the idea of kind of looking at comprehensive projects, thinking strategically. This is a great example of that. Incidentally, this is exactly the same thing that the DOT commissioner was saying just a couple of days ago in his testimony before the city council, basically saying that, we shouldn't be just sitting here counting miles of bike lanes or counting numbers of traffic lights that we've put up. He's saying we need to look at overall quality of life and where we can impact that with the projects that DOT undertakes. And that's what I really like about the work that's done in this audit. You guys have shown that this really is sort of a widespread sort of quality of life issue. There's really sort of something in your research for every road user, right? You're talking about issues that affect drivers. The model project that you show in Riverdale, introducing turn lanes and so forth makes it easier to drive around. Certainly the stuff you're referring to helps bicyclists, and it also gets people off the sidewalk and gets people off who are on scooters and mopeds and so forth off the sidewalk, so that the rest of us who are just walking on the sidewalk can do so in peace. So there's a little bit of everything in this. It really is like a comprehensive thing that you've presented here. And then my last point is the other thing that I think that you've done that's really valuable with this audit is you have sort of exposed a gap in DOT's analysis of 4th Avenue, right? So DOT delisted 4th Avenue as a vision priority corridor, but they delisted 4th Avenue in its entirety from downtown Brooklyn all the way down to Shore Road, as they should, because the bulk of 4th Avenue from downtown to 65th Street has a bunch of street safety improvements, a bunch of traffic calming that they put in, and it worked, right? And so what we're asking them to do is look at this remaining section of the corridor, and say this section probably does need to be still needs to be a priority corridor and really deserves some serious study. So you've really, I think, added some really important data about this particular section that runs through our district. And I think it's going to be really valuable to the folks at DOT.
Thank you. Now, Doris?
Yes, thank you. I have a question. I mentioned the bus stops. There are at least, even if they eliminate some, there'll be 20 bus stops. There are 9 churches. And between 86th Street and 94th Street it's a C8 high density commercial district with multiple driveways. What impact does having gaps in a bike lane, in a protected bike lane, what impact does that the gap have on the safety effect?
So I would add that actually I forget, I think it was Chris mentioned that there are a lot of ways that the DOT could implement changes. So what you did was mention on Second Avenue where they put in a protected bike lane on the sidewalk. And so like, I'm not necessarily proposing that or, one thing or another, but that is one thing that could be done. So if you did the 4 to 3 lane conversion and you had more space to expand sidewalk, the sidewalk width, then, one other thing that could be done is you can kind of put the bike lane besides the sidewalk. And so that way the road space, all the road space would still be like, you're not changing anything on the road space except, you're not adding the bike lane to the road space. And so like, you're not interfering with the bus stops, you're not interfering with the ability of cars to kind of make a quick stop, or, anything, or so forth. But you are still adding in that dedicated space. So that is one option that wouldn't interfere with bus stops.
I would also add that just like.
No, but you didn't answer my question.
I'll answer your question directly. So between 65th Street and Atlantic Avenue, there's a lot of car washes, mechanics, all sorts of businesses that have driveways. And what's that? Oh, okay. So the bike lane, obviously it's not ideal to have brakes in the bike lane, but there are some concessions you have to make in order to make this work. There's still the right of way for cyclists to move through. And the businesses operate as usual, a lot of times there's signage, alerting cyclists to yield or for cars to yield as they're turning in. There's just different ways of approaching this. And, it also takes community effort to work with these infrastructure changes.
Okay.
Okay, I don't see any more board members' hands up.
Unlike northern 4th Avenue, we have many irregular intersections in Bay Ridge that are not right angles. And I forget how many I counted. I think there are 20. But the most egregious are south of 86th Street. They're very severe. How does that impact? And that makes different driving things difficult for cyclists, for motorists, for pedestrians. How does that impact the bike lane?
Again, it depends on how the bike lane is implemented, because there are a lot of ways, there are a lot of different ways that you can implement infrastructure. And so, obviously that would depend on how it's implemented. But I'm sure we're asking the DOT to look at how it could be done. And so.
We're not urban planners specifically, there's different methods that they can use. But, I think we can all imagine a protected bike lane that's consistent with the existing protected bike lane north of 65th, that would go through all of these offset intersections. Daylighting would be part of that, to increase the safety and visibility of everybody.
Okay, well, thank you
and
very much.
Rose, to support your frustration with the DOT. We've made many requests to DOT. We've asked for staggered lights on 4th Avenue, because right now, drivers going south towards the Belt Parkway, they can be at 90th Street and they will go straight through to the shore because they can see every single light. We've asked them to be staggered. We'd also ask them to put louvered lights in where you cannot, from 4 blocks away, you cannot see whether that light is red or green. And they go, duh. So,
Okay.
so there's tremendous frustration there.
All right. Well, I thank everybody. Thank you all so much. We have another person. I'm sorry.
We're finished with the committee members.
I'm
We have to ask
sorry.
if there's anyone from the public who'd like to speak.
I apologize, I didn't see.
Okay, we have someone in the room who'd like to speak?
Thank you.
Hi. Hopefully I remember everything. I want to address a few concerns that were made by some board members. I believe Doris brought up a study done by Transportation Alternatives and Family for Safe Streets. That study was just for super speeders. So the map that she's looking at that doesn't include Bay Ridge, that study is only for the 10 most egregious speeders caught by red light cameras in New York City. That's why Bay Ridge is not represented, because I don't think 4th Avenue, we have any speed cameras or many speed cameras in Bay Ridge to have our drivers to be included in that study. But that map that she was looking at, only for the top 10 super speeders in the city.
Thank you.
Yeah. She did a great up for upstate New York, the street, but again, we can look at 4th Avenue in Sunset Park. There are churches, there's schools, there's a police department. There are many businesses on that strip, and the cyclists all navigate those bike lanes. The businesses navigate those bike lanes. It works. Businesses thrive. I walked that avenue many times, heading to Costco, heading up to Park Slope. Businesses thriving, everything functions. The advantage that we have here on 4th Avenue is we don't have that center divider that they have in Sunset Park.
Right.
So the center lane that would be used for turns would be also clear for emergency vehicles to use if needed, because they don't have the obstruction that they have on 4th Avenue going through Sunset Park. Also, 4th Avenue in this whole area is the only 4-lane road that we have. 3rd Avenue, Ridge Boulevard, 5th Avenue are all one-way roads, and fire department emergency vehicles navigate those roads as well. So just want to be aware that a lot of things that were brought up, we can see how that will function because we have other roads and other things right here in this area to see how it will function. The curved roads on and remember these protected bike lanes, they're not like you would see, like you see on 2nd Avenue where they have a cement thing. These are parking protected bike lanes. So it's not a hard barrier. These are protected just by other cars being offset from the curved lane. So the curvature on 4th Avenue, the irregular roads on curves and intersections really is not an issue because the road will just flow. It's not an issue at all. There's no workaround around it. It doesn't need it to be. I think I covered everything I was thinking about.
Thank you. Jane, if you don't mind, I have a question.
Yes.
So if we do this, what you're proposing, how does sanitation pick up? Where do they stop to pick up?
So I mean, again, like that depends on how, like how the bike lane would be, be put together. But yeah, I mean, there are a lot of ways that you could implement this. And I mean, I would have to look to other examples, so I'm not, so I'm not sure exactly, but I mean, obviously I know that protected bike lanes are installed throughout the city and the garbage is still picked up.
The same way on 65th Street, and also I think it'd be useful for us to do a joint committee meeting with CB7 to answer these, questions.
Yeah. So I mean, I've never asked sanitation, I've never asked sanitation to do it, but it is done. So
But in Sunset Park, you have 2 lanes for cars. You have 2 driving lanes. Here we would only have 1.
Yeah, but
right. So what would happen when sanitation has to pick up? They would just stop all traffic.
Yeah.
Okay.
Way. Life finds a way.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, I've
Thank
never
you.
asked sanitation.
Right.
but yeah.
Thank you.
I just would like to also get back to one thing in our discussion. Our first pedestrian safety report came about as a result from an open meeting where all board members were asked or invited to be part of the pedestrian safety committee. There were specific roles and rules that were shared that to try and uniform the data that was captured. Now, for this audit, while we do have a member of the board who is on it, and we have heard from multiple perspectives, of course, and we want to make sure that this is brought to the table for discussion. This is not a CB10 audit. This is not, because this was not open to all board members to be a part of or to share. Stephanie, I see you have your hand up. I'm sorry, I didn't see that.
That's okay. There were 2 points. One is the one that you just made, because I wanted that to be read into the record.
Yeah.
That this was not like the pedestrian safety study. The second point, and this does not need to be answered now, but I'd like it to be considered for the future, and particularly in the report, that there are several people here this evening who said that everything north of 65th Street works with the protected bike lanes. And that information belies the crash mapper data that says that there's 170% increase in cyclist injuries since 2021 after the implementation of the bike path. And so I just wanted to restate that. Thank you very much.
And I also, I can respond to that if you allow me. I'm sorry, I know.
Yeah, it's getting kind of late.
Yeah, I know.
We've been here for 2 hours and we've spent about an hour and a half.
Wait, no, you
Just a
can't let them
comment.
not respond.
Absolutely.
You can't let them not respond.
I didn't say they cannot respond. She says, I know it's getting late, and I'm agreeing.
Yes.
Okay, so anyway, after 2021, crashes around the city and crash rates around the city and around the country went up. It was one impact of COVID-19. That again, like you saw that across the city and you saw that across the country. So while rates of crashes and fatalities as well, did rise along 4th Avenue after 2021. Again, that's when COVID occurred.
Just for cyclists, but not for pedestrians and motorists. Those actually went down, just to clarify.
Well, I mean, either way, crash rates went up around the city. Crash rates went up on 4th Avenue. Sometimes you'll see dips and sometimes you'll see rises in crashes, and that impact different groups. But I don't know, like I have seen nothing to say that the increase in bike crashes were because of the bike lane. But what I have seen was an increase in fatalities and cyclist fatalities after COVID. That is what I have seen.
And also, I just want to address both your points, Stephanie. So just to that, there's just like also just a huge increase in cyclists, just raw numbers. You're going to have more accidents. So that's that. We can look into that further at another time. And as far as this audit is concerned, I actually did bring it up to Dan when the pedestrian safety study was being put together initially, and I wanted to include something to focus on cyclists, and for CB10 to be part of that. That was my initial idea, and it was rejected. And it was rejected by Dan, and his claim was that CB10's, and I believe Josephine too was asked about this. I can't verify that 100%, but basically CB10's resources were stretched so thin that they could not include cyclists in this. And that really struck a nerve, because it's really important to include some of the most vulnerable road users in a safety study of our district. So my intention was to include CB10. I didn't want to do an independent study, but here we are.
So if I may,
yes,
the title of the report was Pedestrian Safety Study.
I know, but maybe it should have been named something else and included.
Well, we were updating a 2011, a prior report.
Okay.
Okay, we have Daniel Loud.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to, Dino sort of addressed the point that I was going to make, but I just want to say, I mean, again, I think it's admirable that members of the public went and collected this information for us. I know, I think getting hung up on the process in which this got to us is kind of losing the forest for the trees here. I mean, I think if we have concerns that not enough people are involved in this discussion, I would say, let's bring it to them. Like, let's not let it die here. I think we need to give people, the rest of the board, the chance to hear about, to understand this. And so, to say that, we're not going to move it forward. Now, I'm not saying anybody said that. I'm just, if that is the implication of where we're going, I don't think that's the right way to look at this.
I'm sorry if you misconstrued what I'm trying to say. The first one, as I said, did come from the committee, from a board, from board members, and move forward through the channels that we have that are available to us. Our role, as I stated in the beginning, is as a liaison, as a bridge. Now, Rose is here also from Transportation Alternatives. I find that it would be in our community and embrace our community's interest to also share this with DOT, but that it is something that was shared with us from an outside group. But it's something that many members of our board and of our community feel very passionate about. That is the difference. So it's not that we can have a motion on what they've presented, because we haven't really gone through all that and gone through the channels of our board. But we can say that we have had a group come to us that included a board member, that included members of our community, and that we'd like to also, just as we're just sharing information with the first report to DOT and to our elected officials, I would like to make that or ask for that motion that we also similarly share this with DOT and our elected officials, because when we do want to be comprehensive about who is our community, we want to make sure that we can, whatever we're doing helps to include the safety of all of our neighbors. So that's where I'm saying that I can't say that this is a Community Board 10 conclusion, because Community Board 10 members were not it wasn't as open. And all of our meetings, as you know, they're open, they're recorded right now. They're all out in the open. So, you know, and it's a very comprehensive look from 65th Street to 100th Street, and the problems are so vast, you know, that, as we said, and they're different on one end of the community and another. Okay? So I hope you understand that. I see we have Staley and then Chris.
Staley?
Sorry. Well, I mean, if it's not premature, I was going to sort of make a motion, if that's okay, that we can discuss. I think, fortunately, I think the motion that we can make here is a simple one. I think that I would like to make a motion that we forward both our pedestrian safety study that was generated internally and this bike audit from Transportation Alternatives to the DOT, with a request that they meet with us and update us on the status of their study of 4th Avenue, and update us on the status of that study. It's sort of, as Daniel said, it's sort of unclear whether that study is even still underway, and I think that's a great place to start with them.
May we include our elected officials, just as we said for the pedestrian safety? So
yeah,
that was my particular, that I can't say that it was a committee report, just in the same way I could for the other one.
Yeah, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, I think it's great to include the elected officials and sort of just to restate my just to say again, this is the time to send this. I think this is something that is actively being discussed in City Hall. What the next steps are for DOT citywide. So this is really the time to get this in their hands, I think.
And as we said, this is the year that the impact of the new city bikes will be affecting our community more so than when the study was first done, where their audit, was first done. So that is another thing for DOT to have on their radar, because we don't get to make those conclusive decisions. We don't get to make those specifics. We get to share the information, and that's what I really would opt that we do. Stephanie, you had your hand up as well.
I'm just going to second it, if that's the motion.
Thank you.
And the first motion that we did and voted on already included the first report, so this would just
right. This is just for the second report.
As an addendum, and just forward that with DOT with okay.
Okay.
Second.
Okay.
Thank you. Daniel, you have a question? I'm sorry.
Oh, no, it was just
agreeing.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. All right. With that, so we have that seconded. So can we ask our board members, if all are in favor of, as Daley said, to send the the bike audit that was shared with us from Transportation Alternatives and members of our community, that we may send that to DOT and to our elected officials and raise up this issue that has been brought to our attention. All in favor? Oh, Zaley is doing no. Wait, I'm sorry.
Wait. Oh, sorry. Just to clarify, I think I do think, as I said in my motion, I think we should specifically request a formal update in a meeting from them, updating us on the status of 4th Avenue.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
I have that.
Okay. So now, all in favor? Okay.
Okay, we do not have an in-person quorum, so we will have to bring this up
Right.
on the floor of the board meeting.
Right. Did we have any opposed?
Oh, sorry.
I don't think we should forward the report until we see the data, till we see the actual materials behind it. We have that on pedestrian safety. We do not have that on this. We don't know that. I would like to see the details.
I can forward that.
Can we get,
Yeah, absolutely.
Can you send that to the board?
It's
Thank you.
it's not fun
Thank you.
to look at.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, and then we'll send it out to all the committee members.
Thank you. Were there any recusals or abstentions? Okay, so Dorothy, then, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so Dorothy, if you could just repeat then.
Repeat, I'm sorry.
So then we're going to, you said that we did not have a quorum, you said?
We didn't have an in-person quorum.
Okay. But we have.
We'll bring this up on the floor of the board.
Okay.
We'll just go through it again. So the board meeting is on Monday, March 16th, and we'll be meeting at the Knights of Columbus in person. That's
Great.
1305 86th Street.
As long as it doesn't snow.
No, no.
Said it for us. Hey.
Okay,
I'm sorry, you said 16?
March 16th, Monday, March 16th. Knights of Columbus, 1305 86th.
Got it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Does that mean they're gonna do this whole thing again or just?
Not in depth
No.
like this,
No,
no.
not in depth.
No,
Just a vote.
well, the chair will write a report, what happened here. There'll be a little bit of discussion and then we'll vote.
Right.
Okay?
All right. Well, now do we have the motion to adjourn? Okay, I see it. I see it. Thank you. And thank you all for.
Before we adjourn,
Oh, thank you, Sandy.
before we adjourn, I just want to thank you for your leadership on this committee. And I know for you, it's been a trying day. I know you had a loss in the family, and my condolences to you and your family.
Thank you so
All
much.
of us.
Thank you so much. All right. Thank you all for a very spirited discussion and a very informative one as well. We have to come together to work together because let's face it, we all live together. All right.
Yes.
Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Everybody.
Thank you, guys. That was really
Yeah.
good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, and by the
That
way-
65th Street thing is a disaster.
Yeah, it's a shit show. It's not fun. Are we still recording? Whoops.
Yes, wait a
Do
second.
you?
Yeah.
I'm trying to end it. I did.
All those
I did that.